Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of GRID Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider alongside, as always, Brandon Crosland. And look who's here making his GRID Live Encore debut, Jackson Lambros from Outlet Media. Jackson, great to have you on the show tonight. How's it going?
Great to be here, gentlemen. Super excited to be here. Apologies if I'm looking a little shiny, kind of power walked back from my class to be here. But regardless, really excited. Want to thank the whole GRID network for the opportunity to be here. And ready to talk shop.
And good to see Amber in the chat here as well, giving you a welcome.
Hi, Amber.
Jackson.
Happy to be here.
Apparently, she also watched the After Dark show with you guys.
Oh, man.
This weekend.
Long live the scuff. That was an all-timer, man. That was so much fun.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm unfortunate I had to miss out on that one. I was moving into my new space here, as you can see, this weekend. Is Max the 2023 Grid Ranking Champion? Not yet officially, but as is the case with the actual F1 Championship, I would think he pretty much has one hand on it at this point. Brandon, good to see you as well. How's it going?
It's going well. The moving process is continuing, getting some more things back here on the windowsill and kind of just figuring out how this new studio is going to work. I'll finally get it figured out by championship weekend. How's that?
Sounds good. I will do the same. I've got some stuff here on my shelves as well. But
so Jackson, we both happen to move at the same time so the show has completely changed the way.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we only really have the Xfinity Series race at Texas in terms of the series that we regularly cover here on this show. So we're going to fill the time with a couple of open segments tonight, and we're going to start with the news that broke earlier today. The 2024 IndyCar Series schedule is out, and oh boy, we've got some mixed feelings and mixed reactions there. Jackson, I guess I'll start with you. I know you're a big IndyCar guy. What do you like about the schedule? What do you not like about the schedule? And what do you absolutely hate about the schedule? We'll go through the good, bad, and the ugly here.
Well, the goods for me, we've talked about this before, Ben. The goods for me are kind of the negatives for you. I'm a West Coast kid, super stoked to see thermal in the calendar, super close to me, and just always love new tracks, especially kind of the more unique tracks added to the venue like that. How about the Milwaukee Mile? I remember Robin Miller, when Phoenix left the calendar, saying we're losing all these ovals forever, and Milwaukee was on that list of tracks that was strongly believed were never gonna return to IndyCar, and here we are. And I think that is absolutely a step in the right direction for IndyCar for slowly building back and having more ovals. I say that, but the big loss here is, as we can see on the schedule, in between Thermal and Long Beach, there was supposed to be a Texas-sized gap there. And of course, my beloved Thermal has kind of filled that in. And that is something that we'll say indifferent on, because I'm super stoked to see Thermal, but it seems like we were finally in a position where IndyCar was getting a super speedway package that was competitive, that had cars competitive, running side by side and comfortable. I don't want to say pack racing, but in a much closer kind of environment in areas like Texas. And now, Ben, the only time we're going to be seeing those low downforce super speedway kits, it's going to be the Indy 500. Now, short ovals, don't get me wrong, always great to see that, but I just think it's a scheduling conflict, and I'm a glass half full guy, and I'm so convinced that this is going to be back for 25. I genuinely believe that. But there's obviously the other big issue now, and that is we kind of have like zero IndyCar racing in the middle of the US now, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can see on the screen here, these maps were put together courtesy of NASCAR Man on Twitter, or X, I guess we have to say now, even though I'll never get used to that.
It's Twitter.
Yes. But on the left, you see the 2023 map. And on the right, I mean, I know obviously it's all Texas Motor Speedway being gone, but the map somehow looks worse.
It does. It really does.
We were talking last year about how the only change really was to change from venue from the Detroit street circuit. Like, at least we got a new track this year with Milwaukee, but I mean, come on. If you're in the middle of the country, if you're in the mountain time zone, if you're in the eastern time zone, there's not much going for you.
Listen, as far as Texas, it's the biggest state in the continental United States, at least. I don't know if Alaska's bigger, but really that's the whole reason that map, anyway, to me looks empty. They're adding more in Wisconsin, and that's really the big part for me. I'll wait. I'll let Ben. I want to hear you go Stephen A on us. Because I've been waiting on this.
Yeah,
I've been waiting on this all day.
Yeah.
That Alaska question is for our Alaska native Joe Samaniego, but I think the big thing is we've learned this for sure over the past couple of decades with the doubleheader that was ran at Road America a couple years ago. The guys up in Wisconsin love their IndyCar racing, and I think that's why we're seeing another race in that state. But with the Formula One excitement brewing in the Austin area, you would think that people down there would be more excited just for any kind of racing, which is not only why I would love to see Circuit of the Americas back. I know we experimented with that in 2018, 2019, but I would love to see that come back. I think Texas absolutely deserves a shot back. But Ben, what I'm curious about for the big issue here, obviously, is we're losing ovals. How much of a problem do we think is ISC maybe having a bit of a monopoly on those?
Well, let me be very, very clear. This isn't all on Roger Penske. This isn't all on the IndyCar Series. Some of it's on ISC. Some of it's on NASCAR. Some of it's on NBC, I think, if we're being quite honest, because I have some problems with the broadcasting side of this as well. Let me just read this tweet here. This is from Nathan Brown from earlier this morning when the schedule first broke from IndyStar. By the numbers, next year's IndyCar calendar includes 2 races at Milwaukee, 0 races at Texas. That's the first time since 1997, I believe, that Texas has not been on the calendar.
Because IRL.
2 races at night, 9 races on NBC. I'll get to that in a second because NBC tried to put the PR spin on this and it did not get past some eagle-eyed viewers here. 2 races on Peacock. That's fantastic. 42 days between races 1 and 2 of the regular season. Woo!
And NBC posted that. NBC posted that officially as a flex. Are you kidding me?
Let me tell you what NBC did that really grinds my gears. The press release and the tweet that they sent out, it says, "Oh, we've got 12 races on Big NBC next year." Do you know what they included in those 12 races? They included the Thermal Club race, which is an exhibition. And they included day 1 and day 2 of Indianapolis 500 qualifying.
That does not count. It doesn't count. That doesn't. Oh my gosh.
So you went from, what was it? I think it was something. I mean, credit where it's due to NBC. I think it was something like 14 races the first year that NBCSN was gone. We're on Big NBC and 2 are on USA. And I think the trade-off to get 1 race on the streaming service Peacock was, for 14 network TV races. Okay, fine. Have your Peacock exclusive race. Now you're down to 9 races on NBC. It's about half and half. You got 6 races, I guess, on USA, and 2 races are Peacock exclusive. And by the way, one of them is the massively hyped, massively exciting addition to the schedule, the Milwaukee Mile. It's race 1.
Race 1.
Yeah. Race 1 of a doubleheader. The second race, I believe, is on USA. And look, I understand NBC's got the Olympics next year. That there's only so much they can do to work around that. But I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when there's a sporting event or when there's anything on Peacock, I suppose, in terms of live viewing that actually draws good numbers, NBC will let us know. They'll give us the combined TV and Peacock ratings. If they're simulcasting something, they'll let us know if there's a Premier League match that broke Peacock records. They're not afraid to share those numbers out there. Have you noticed what they've said for the Toronto races the last 2 years? Oh, the ratings were in line with our expectations, and we have no further comment on what that means.
Because you put it on Peacock.
And I'm just sitting back here thinking, if the ratings were actually good, if the ratings were actually decent, if they were actually worth celebrating, we'd know what they are. So the fact that they will spin it as, they were in line with what we expected, give me a break. That tells you everything you need to know.
It has been, since the ABC days, it has been the biggest issue with this sport. And I'm going to use my beloved San Diego Padres as an example, who just lost a TV contract and are now being hosted by the MLB. And instantly, halfway through the season, you've got half of the fan base asking, where the crap do I even watch these shows? Where do I watch these games? And it's just, it should be consistent. For regardless of what race, regardless of when it is, it should be a consistent thing. And I get that there's contractual obligations, but you need to make this as easy as possible for the fans.
The shutdown of NBCSN still bothers me so much because I don't think Peacock is anywhere near ready to be a competitor in terms of like, oh, we're on the same level of Netflix. Everybody has us. Everybody can find us. Marty Smith tweeted last year. Marty Smith of ESPN, who's a legendary NASCAR and college football reporter, does some great work for that network. He tweeted last year during the Daytona cutoff race because it got postponed to Sunday morning. And this is like the cutoff to get into the playoffs and the end of the regular season. And he's like, where's the race? I can't find the race. Because it was airing at 10:30 in the morning on the Consumer News and Business Channel, CNBC. Because there's no, like, and I get it. I'm just as frustrated when they bumped it to NBCSN as I am now when they bump it to USA or bump overrun programming over to CNBC or, whatever the case may be there. But at least NBCSN stands for NBC Sports Network. At least it's a logical place to bump your programming to. Whereas now it's like, we made all the jokes about the NASCAR truck race at Eldora being on Fox Business, whatever that was in the mid-2010s. That's the NBC equivalent. I guess CNBC is a tier higher in most cable packages than Fox Business is at the very least. So maybe it's technically in more households, but nobody's going to CNBC to watch. And let's talk about Supercross and Monster Jam as well, because a lot of their programming's been shifted over there. I just think it does these series such a disservice to be in these contracts with this network and not. That means now the only network, because even CBS. I know CBS Sports Network is nowhere near the level of ESPN or even FS1, but at least it exists. At least it gives CBS something that makes sense to push some, I guess more niche sporting events and programming over to. But you don't have that now if you're NBC. I just think that does such a disservice to not just the fans, but to the series that you're broadcasting and have these contracts with, because where does your overrun programming go to? It goes to a network where you wouldn't expect to find sports.
Yeah. And Ben, I want to give NBC benefit of the doubt here, because for this to all execute flawlessly in a perfect world where we had all of these on NBC, you would need to have so many working parts going perfectly at the exact same time. And I want to say this because NBC up until the past couple of years have been doing this so fantastically, I feel like, but I think the bare minimum for me is you should have some kind of cable or broadcast channel for every single race. You should not have to resort to a online streaming platform. I think that's the big killer for me.
Yeah, I'm also in the benefit of the doubt for this whole schedule for NBC, for Roger Penske, just for this year with Paris Olympics going on for one thing. And
that's the big one. Yeah.
And also just the fact that we were able to add Milwaukee, I think is much more than you could, if you're asking for more steps than that to be added in 1 year, I think you're asking too much, especially on an Olympics year. So honestly, that's been my main thought today with this schedule, is because I don't know the full scope of what's been going on behind the scenes. Do we not think that Roger Penske thinks we need more ovals? Yes, he does. He does.
He's been saying since he took over. How
is
many
he fighting?
That's the problem.
I know. Is he fighting to get it? I think he is, and I think he's trying to make deals, and I think ISC might be getting in the way, of course. I don't know what that looks like behind closed doors. I'd love to find out. I'd love to see us get back to Michigan, or if they. I know Kobe Lambeth in our private chat earlier today was saying, "What about Kentucky?" Just for a year as a placeholder, that would have been cool, but obviously that fell through. So I want to know what the deal is behind in private conversation. We don't really know. And yeah, Pocono is also one of those big ones that
Amber, that's a fantastic point. And I'm sorry for jumping on you here, Brandon, but I think it's a little bit of Las Vegas syndrome for Pocono, because a lot of damage has been done there.
Yeah,
let's give it benefit of the doubt, because that is an aging track, and I don't know how much a repave would save that, but I think it's a matter of how much IndyCar wants to go back there, Ben.
Well, I get what you're saying, Jackson. The thing is, IndyCar ran there for 5 years, and God rest Justin Wilson's soul. I miss him every day, but that's an accident. I don't think you blame Pocono for that. That was a freak deal that could have happened at any high-speed oval, including Indianapolis. I don't put the blame on Pocono for that one. And people are going to put the blame on Pocono for Robert Wickens' crash as well. I remember seeing the arguments when that happened, and when the stack up when they came back next year happened. The cars were too bunched up on the start. If IndyCar had done like a Indianapolis 500 style 3-wide start with 100 yards or whatever between each row to prevent the craziness that we've seen. I mean, NASCAR man will always post these clips too. Remember, they were going 7 to 8 wide. I think Takuma Sato went from 11th to 4th in the span of about a football field one year, going into the first corner. If we can help the drivers help themselves, and then I guess the last thing was, and again, I know this would be a really expensive project. I don't know if it's worth it, but can you raise the walls a foot or two? Maybe that would prevent another Wickens kind of situation from happening. I think Las Vegas, I think we're still at least a decade away from.
It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while.
You still have drivers in the series who were in that race and were there that day, and again, I don't think it was all of a track. I think putting 34 cars on there was not the smartest idea either.
Yes.
But
there's
the package that they ran. I mean, Champ Car ran there in 2005. I think a lot of people forget that. Obviously, the track was flatter, hadn't been reconfigured yet. But I think that drawing it back to Pocono, I think there's a way to make IndyCar work there. I understand that there weren't nearly as many broken hearts in that series when the track went away. But I'm just thinking of this region, man, and you got Pocono, you've got New Hampshire, you've got Watkins Glen, you've got the canceled street race in Boston that was supposed to happen.
Watkins Glen, which was in the series until 2016, 2017, guys.
17, that's right.
And I think about what could have been with Richmond in 2020 before COVID. That
exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Well, the main thing that I want to drive home when we're having this conversation here, we've talked about this on this show before as well, Save the Freedom 100, right?
Yes.
Jackson, you mentioned it in our chat. You mentioned it here earlier in this discussion. We have Milwaukee, we have Gateway, we have Iowa. All those tracks, relatively speaking, shorter of a mile and a half at the very least, right? We're not using the super speedway aero kit. So how many races are on the calendar next year where we're using that aero kit? The Indianapolis 500. Period.
That was the jaw dropper today.
That's the only race. The Freedom 100 still has not been saved. There's been no rumors and no indication that that's coming back anytime soon.
If we want to,
drivers
keep going.
Yeah, no worries. Our young drivers, they're working their way up through the USF ladder. They get to Indy next. What do they have? Gateway, Iowa. Maybe they'll go to Milwaukee next year. There'll be something at least. But then they get to the IndyCar Series.
Nothing.
And not only
experience.
Not only have they never raced on a high-speed oval like that, they're not going to get to do that in IndyCar because now a Texas date is gone. So how can you imagine being a rookie going into the Indianapolis 500 for the first time and you have no prior experience with that aero kit? You have no race laps underneath you with that aero kit? How are we doing? We are doing our young drivers a disservice by not preparing them better for the IndyCar Series premier crown jewel race, the Indianapolis 500. And then we are going to get on them when they make a mistake or inevitably crash out during practice or qualifying and say they're not ready for this. Do you know why they're not ready for this? Take a look at the schedule.
And Ben, that's exactly why guys like Ricardo Juncos and Chip Ganassi, when they're looking for new young talent, they're not going to Indy next. They're going to Formula 2. They're looking for international star road course talent and guys like Callum Ilott, Marcus Armstrong. You're looking for guys who are just so much more exposed to variety of road and street circuits because that's the majority of what IndyCar consists of now. And Indy Next is getting almost the exact same, just in a lower quantity. Excuse me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you gotcha.
Yeah, and again, I forgot what I was going to say. I think that's just one of those. Well, yeah, that's another one of those things where like I wonder like as the heads at IndyCar do you think they didn't think that through, that we're only going to have one race since the Indy 500 where we're going to have the Speedway aero kit? Like that had to pass through the boardroom at some point, and they had to justify it somehow. Or maybe it was an oversight. We don't know. But I can't see that being a thing where they never thought, well, maybe this is going to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, and again, I understand that NASCAR has the first rights to Texas Motor Speedway and everything, and they want to move a date back to the spring. And I understand that because, I mean, it was triple digits there this weekend. I'm all for putting it. I mean, if that race has to be on the NASCAR schedule, because I'd rather them just either give it to IndyCar or
Walmart Speedway.
Put a Walmart there. Yeah, exactly. There you go. But I think that what was stopping IndyCar from bringing back the June night race, and let's say, like, let's keep Texas on the schedule. We might have to have it at our number 2 preferred date as opposed to our number 1, but we can still race here. We can still have the event. I mean, that's what bothers me is that I understand it's a NASCAR conversation too, but
here's what I'm
this
realizing
can't
right now,
be
Ben.
sustainable. You can't have this be the permanent thing moving forward where we only have one high-speed oval and it's the Indianapolis 500. How else are drivers going to get ready for it?
And I think everyone is aware of that, and I think even Roger Penske is realizing this is the only year we're going to make this happen. I'm hoping and I'm praying, but I'm realizing one major thing here, and that is if we're this level of concerned with things overlapping and us not being able to have things on cable TV during the Tokyo Olympics, why not push it to Peacock? And I know that's also a matter of staffing issues. I know Lee is a regular for track and field when it comes to summer, and a lot of those production and camera staff end up going there for other purposes. But how much work would it be to have a Peacock broadcasted event during Paris?
Oh, well, again, I mean, I know NBC is probably going to send everybody over there to. I mean, Dale Jr.'s over there doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody involved with NBC is probably going to, whether they're on site in Paris or, doing stuff remotely to promote it. I mean, I understand NBC is in a bind every 4 years, but, the reality is this series will still continue to go on, and, you've got to find a way around that.
Yep. Here's one thing I really did want to bring up, because we were given a lot of teases and talks of a international race in Argentina, or rumored to be in Argentina, and we didn't see anything about that today.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't know. Well, like I said on Grid tonight, I think, and I'll bring the map back up here again, I think we need to even out this map a little bit more before we start talking about a race.
Let's fill our bases here first before going overseas. Yeah.
And then I really feel you about the East Coast deal, and also for all the folks in the mountain time zone basically all being wiped out. I completely get that. I see this also from a different marketing perspective, and I'm no expert, never am, but I think maybe IndyCar, in their mind, they think a little bit differently than NASCAR did in the boom period, where they think, oh, we've got to hit every market of the U.S. They come from that mindset of, look, our bread and butter is in the Midwest. Our bread and butter is centered around Indianapolis and the surrounding area, and that's in their mind, whether it's true or not. They think that's where our main fan base is, and people who pay to go see a race, and so that's where they branch out from there. And then they also hit their wealthy hotbeds. You look at Thermal Club, you look at St. Pete, and then you get your championship party town, which is Nashville, Tennessee, which I'm really excited about. But anyway, it's
a fear, I believe, Brandon, of a lot of mistakes made earlier on in the last decade of we don't want to put millions of dollars to race in front of empty grandstands. And I think Fontana 2015 is a great example of that. So I think it's really kind of treading waters carefully and making sure that these are events that the series are going to be able to make a profit off of before, doing that NASCAR route of covering all of the bases.
I'll be honest, I was kind of dumb. I didn't even know that Laguna was going to stay on the schedule. I did not see any either. If that happened, I was not looking for the headline. Did not know it was going to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, well, it does stay, but it shifts up to June.
Right.
And as you can see, Brandon, that's your home race, the streets of Nashville, Tennessee. That will be the season finale. And again, you can look at the networks as well. Only 9 races on Big NBC, despite what that PR statement tells you. It is only 9 official points-paying races on the big network next year. 6 races on USA Cable, and then 2 races streaming exclusively on Peacock. So we'll look forward to those Peacock numbers not coming in and analyze the...
It's true, they won't.
Even
for Milwaukee.
Analyze the NBC and USA rating. I have a feeling that 1.3 number that they hit this year, probably going to be a stretch to try to replicate that again. Maybe if the Indy 500 jumps up, because I know the 500 was down a little bit, been down a little bit the last couple of years as well. So maybe that'll provide a boost, but we'll just have to wait and see there.
You know what? This schedule is a divisive topic, and I love it. It's great for this show, but I'm just thankful the schedule is out, and we get to enjoy another year of IndyCar.
They're doing better than NASCAR in that department.
Right. And
We still need the NASCAR schedule.
And speaking of which, when the NASCAR schedule comes, we'll have another open segment like this, and I'm sure we'll be throwing fists at each other. So do tune in.
Yes.
I'll be here with popcorn.
Yeah, I have to say that the single biggest issue that I have with this schedule is that there's no doubleheader at Nazareth Speedway. I'm very, very disappointed. I thought for sure we were finally going to get that this year, but
For sure.
we will have to wait.
Don't you know?
We'll start
a infield.
We'll start a change.org petition for that for you, Ben.
I think there already is one.
Go for it,
I think there is a Save Nazareth Speedway group. It's not nearly as big as the North Wilkesboro one, obviously, but hey, Wilkesboro's back. A man can dream, right?
No, it can happen.
Who would have thought?
And I mean, you want to talk about Andretti Town. I think if one family could make it happen, it's those guys. So
you want to talk about the perfect place to host your all-star race? If you're going to do an all-star race,
oh yeah,
take a page out of NASCAR's book, right? I mean,
man, that would be insane.
Yeah.
The one thing that I am now all of a sudden regretting, speaking of Darlington, and after this, I'm gonna shut up. But after Scott running the Yellow Submarine, which has been a Penske tradition, I know, after Graham running a tribute to his dad and Colton running a tribute to his dad, guys, I want an IndyCar throwback weekend so bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
Let the whole field
I don't know where we'd have it. Let the whole field do it. Let the whole field do it. I would be so down.
Why not one of the Milwaukee races?
Yeah.
I can set that up.
Took the words
exactly.
Right out of
Exactly.
On the circuit.
Yeah. Well, I think
it's tracks in the countries.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'd be unfortunate if it were the Peacock race. But I think that is the perfect track to do it at. It's a very historic track. It's been around for over a century, and
let's get on Twitter and make it the unofficial throwback weekend. So if we can just have like Andy Blackmore and all the livery guys just kind of start throwing out prototypes in advance, just to kind of make it the unofficial throwback weekend. I think that'd be really cool.
Just to push at the teams. Hey guys, look.
Be really cool if you guys did this.
Yeah.
I will say one final point on the schedule that I haven't mentioned yet. Very disappointed that what I think is now, especially with Texas gone, objectively, I think the second most prestigious race on the calendar, the Long Beach Grand Prix, is a USA race.
That sucks.
Oh my gosh, I'm just realizing that now.
Yep.
Horrendous.
That is a bummer. But
on USA.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Jackson, thank you so much. We're going to see you again here in the second half of the show for another open segment. In the meantime, Brandon and I are going to recap the Xfinity race. So we will see you here in just a little bit.
I have one more thing, though, Jackson.
Sure,
I really hope they open up with the Thermal Club $1 Million Challenge. On
no,
NBC.
Oh my God. No. And there's the little asterisk by it, like we're probably going to change the name, but that would be so good. It'd be so good.
I was telling Ben behind stage, like, yeah, it's $1 million challenge, and people living around the Thermal Club are like, yeah, I have like 72 of those.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Listen, Ben, play me out.
Radio. Yeah.
All right, Jackson, we will see you in a bit. In the meantime, let's talk about the Xfinity Series race here, and I will pull the results up for you. In an absolutely shocking turn of events, Hunter Nemechek won an Xfinity Series race. I believe his 7th of the year, if I'm not mistaken. Right. After winning the first 2 stages and leading 2/3 of the laps, Justin Allgaier ended up having to settle for a 5th place finish. He remained second in points. Obviously, Hunter Nemechek is the runaway championship favorite at this moment with how he's been running and peaking at the right time. Of top 2 in the standings, with Allgaier winning the earlier race in the round, are already locked in. So, Brandon, we look at what Justin Allgaier's done. We see him having a strong run this weekend, 5th on the results sheet. Has he overtaken Austin Hill in your mind as the number 2 title favorite behind Nemechek?
For right now, I would say that, but we are going to Talladega next week, and that just sounds like Austin Hill town to me. Yeah, Justin Allgaier definitely has the pace right now to overtake him, and it's not hard to make that claim, but overall, the wins are more. I mean, 4 wins for Austin Hill in the total season, Allgaier with 3, but at this point, it doesn't matter. We're in the playoffs now, round of 12, and I guess Allgaier has to have the momentum to tell you that he's the top Chevy that's going to fight John Hunter. I guess that's where we sit right now. Mike. Yeah, all good.
Sorry, I know I do that here once a month. I go backstage, mute myself, and then forget to unmute myself here. I know it's been a down year for junior motorsports in many respects, and we'll get into a couple of their drivers here in just a moment. But I don't think it's been a down year for Justin Allgaier. I think he's maximized a lot of his opportunities. I think he could very well be a championship contender this year when it comes time for that at Phoenix. And the way he's running right now, I know he came up short of the win this weekend, but he certainly looked like he was a race-winning contender here. And again, it's all with this system. It's all about peaking at the right time. It's all about making sure you get to the championship race, and then anything can happen. Daniel Hemrick can certainly tell you anything can happen when you get there. You just have to make the championship four and be in position to make the right move at the right time. And I have no doubt that Justin Allgaier is certainly more than capable of doing that himself. So we'll see what happens for him and with junior motorsports. In the meantime, let's talk about another strong run for Parker Kligerman. Second place. Looks like he continues to knock on the door of that Xfinity Series win for him and that 48 team. Brandon, when do you see him breaking through and going one spot better? Is he going to get it by the end of this season? Is he going to get it next weekend at the Roval, or is he going to have to wait until 2024?
Roval would be a great shot for Parker. He put up some great racing there at Texas, and people are going to fault him for the kind of the pushy they had there with Allgaier. They had the conversation at the end, but really I think that's just why would you not go? Why would you not send it and go for it if you're Parker Kligerman with that team and big machine racing? They're already outperforming where they should be. So the Roval will be a great place for him to do it. He's done well there in the past. He really seems to like his road courses all around. But I think he can do it this year. Roval would be the best. Schedule not really memorized right now, so thinking ahead to what we have left. Vegas.
So it's Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville will be the round of 8, and then Phoenix will be the championship race.
Yeah. I guess the Roval will be his best chance. Vegas and Homestead, it just depends on where he ends up. Martinsville, don't really know his results there. Phoenix, hopefully he's vying for a championship by then. We'll have to see. But I think Roval is probably his best bet.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. If he's second on a mile and a half, I wouldn't put Vegas or Homestead past him. I think I agree with you. His best chance is probably Roval here. Martinsville may be going to be a little bit of a stretch. And again, I just think the championship four, even if it's just like psychologically, I think they just have such an advantage with this format. It's very rare. I know we've seen it in Xfinity and trucks a couple of times, but you really have to be firing on all cylinders and be well out ahead of the pack. Because I think even if we saw it, I think 1 year with Kyle Larson in 2017 in the Cup race. I think if that had been any other race, I think he probably had enough momentum to pass Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. But I think there's just, whether Kyle even realized it in the moment or not, you don't want to be the guy that messes up that championship battle and let the two front runners fight it out for themselves. Ryan Blaney, if I recall correctly, I think was running second behind Joey Logano last year in the Cup race, except Logano was in the championship four, and Blaney was hesitant to try to make a move and get up there to challenge him. So I think Phoenix probably a bit of a stretch. Martinsville might be more of a stretch, but the way he looked at Texas this weekend, and the way we know he can drive on the road courses, I wouldn't put a win past him this year either. But on that note, we look at the playoff standings right now, Brandon. He's only 1 point below the cut line. So, obviously there are some drivers for whom this is going to be a must-win situation if they want to advance. Is 1 point below the cut line enough for Parker Kligerman to say, if we go out, we get stage points and have a good finish, we still have a solid chance here? Or does he still need to be in must-win mentality given his current situation?
I think he let me look back at the question again. I was formulating there. No longer a must-win. Yeah, I think he's safe. He just has to stay out of trouble, stay out of the heartburn turn. I know we're changing the way we restart now. Instead of taking the dog leg there, we're actually going into the kink at the front stretch, which I guess will help turn one restarts. We'll have to see if that experiment holds true. I think I think he'll be fine if he just runs his race, keeps the car clean, and a top 5, top 10 day, not completely out of the picture. Has to qualify well. I think at Roval you really need to qualify well with Xfinity with how short it is.
Well, you bring up a good point as well. I think the restarts are going to be very interesting. All I can think back to is the first year we ran this configuration. Brad Keselowski kind of led everybody off a cliff there into the Tums Heartburn turn or whatever it's called.
Forget.
Yes. Because I think part of the reason for that is when you cut the chicane, even on a restart, you've got more speed. Your braking zone is completely different going into that first corner. So obviously, if you take the chicane on the front in the infield here, you're not going to have that. If you're starting further towards the back of the pack, you've now got another tight twist and turn, but you've got to work your way through coming to the restart zone. That might be a disadvantage, which I think is even more so going to make qualifying just that much more important. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to hold judgment on that change until we actually see it in execution, because I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. Just as the reintroduction of stage brakes is going to be. I'm certainly not going to endorse that one, no matter what happens here, because I think that it's been a nice change of pace, and unfortunately, I guess the executives didn't see it that way because
it has, yeah. But I also, as much as I know you don't like me saying it, I see where the other side is coming from sometimes, and so I'm willing to let it slide if we can have more people happy, I guess.
I see where they're coming from too. I just very strongly disagree with it.
I know.
That's
what makes the show so great.
Not the issue of the race format. But let's move on here. One final question in this segment, and then we'll move on to one final open segment to close out the show. Of the 4 drivers currently below the cut line here, PK is one of them. You got Jeb Burton, and then you got 2 junior motorsports cars. We're talking about that with Allgaier. Been a bit of a down year. Brandon Jones missed the playoffs entirely. Josh Berry and Sam Mayer, I guess it's mathematically possible, but I have a very hard time seeing both of them get out of this round at this point. It's probably a must-win situation for both of them, unless they both probably finish 1-2 in the stages.
Right.
Who would be the most surprising round of 12 exit of those 4 drivers? Is it Kligerman, Burton, Berry, or Mayer?
It's crazy to think, but I think the biggest shocker would be if Parker Kligerman didn't make it. He's only 1 point out, and he's I don't know. I think Jeb Burton and Sam Mayer really put himself in a hole with Texas. Let's be real. That's was not what they needed. Josh Berry and Jeb Burton kind of the same. I think PK would be. It'd be strange to see him not make it with the advantage he has right now. Something terrible would have to go wrong, and then it'd be the next guy's turn to try to make it in. Who's your biggest upset?
I mean, honestly would go with Mayer, and not because of the position that he's going to be in going into this Roval race, but I just feel like, he got a couple of wins, and I thought that team was really starting to turn around and hit their stride at the right time going into the postseason here. And, like the first 2 races, like you mentioned, Brandon, especially this race here at Texas, it just has completely fallen apart, and I think they're almost certainly in a must-win situation heading into the Roval. But yeah, that would just be a surprise to me based on where that team was trending and has now trended backwards. That turnaround has been a little surprising to me. So that would be my pick. But again, I'm with you on Kligerman. I think he's got a lot of momentum. He's peaking at the right time. He's knocking on the door of that win. And, even if he doesn't win, I think that the points margin is close enough that he could work the mathematics and find a way to just, even if he has a solid finish, find his way into the next round.
Yeah, Sam Mayer with the win at Elkhart Lake, the win his first win at Road America, and then Watkins Glen. You may not have to worry too much about a must-win because this is probably his final best shot. The way he's been trending is where he does well. He seems to really do well with the H pattern on the road courses.
Yeah. Well, an interesting and caveats here, because I'm going off of Wikipedia, which is not always accurate. I know you're not really supposed to do that. As a former editor myself, I can tell you sometimes things are slightly wrong.
Yeah,
but,
we would fail a class for doing that.
Yes. But I will tell you that the 48 team with Scott Borchetta, the Owners' Championship, they are not in the Owners' Playoffs. So it's an interesting dynamic there. We always talk about the possibility of a split championship. I apologize if my internet's starting to dip here. I'm getting that notice again. But
it's fine.
Kligerman, if he continues to advance, could lead to that possibility of a split championship here. So always interesting to keep an eye on the owner's side of things as well. Of course, that's the whole reason Daniel Hemrick is currently in the 10 cars to go after that owner's championship. So we'll keep an eye on that as we wrap up the rest of the Xfinity season here on GRID Live Encore. And we'll report back on the Roval next week. I'm expecting chaos and controversy as we always do, or 2 weeks from now, I guess, because we've got Talladega and then the Roval will be back. But the next Xfinity race for the Roval, we will be right here as always to recap it with you. In the meantime, let's bring our friend Jackson back on screen. We're going to close out the show tonight with another open segment and revisit something we were talking about this weekend. I think you guys talked about it on the After Dark pre-race show as well. We got to talk about Logan Sargeant. And I know that this was a big talking point for us, Brandon, on the last Encore show of 2022, the Formula 2 race weekend at Abu Dhabi. We were all so excited to see an American back in Formula 1. He got his super license points. He did everything he needed to do to confirm that seat for 2023. And it just has not gone very well, particularly since the summer break for him. So, Jackson, I want to start with you. Where do you see Logan Sargeant in terms of his chances of retaining that seat for 2024 in that second Williams car alongside Alex Albon?
I think it's going to be a very similar approach to DeVries at the start of last year. You're already in hot water with how much you've proven yourself as a driver, but you are still someone who is objectively, narrative-wise and marketing-wise, someone who's good for the sport, and we want to give you this opportunity and chance to improve. But again, we've got people waiting in the wings for you. If you are not able to deliver to the amazing performance that Alex Albon has been able to do this season with that car. So I would realistically have the cutoff to 2-3 races before the summer break in 24. And I think after that, it's do or die for him.
Yeah, it sounds about right. And it's been really, really tough it's really just tough to be a Williams driver. And Alex Albon clearly knows how to take advantage of that. But we throw the American in there and, you give him an equal shot like everybody else. But the time comes, that's a really coveted seat. It's just really tough in Formula One to excel if you're not at the highest of high caliber of a driver. And Logan Sargeant definitely is that. Just you can also get the bad hand of chance as well sometimes, is the way those things turn out. And the recent crash at Suzuka, it just put it brought this question up again. Just is how long can you sustain this without Williams having to look the other way?
Just a guy that can stay out of trouble this weekend. And I think Brandon, it's a combination of, I mentioned this last night. I think it's a great combination of, one, Williams not bringing the most competitive package once again. But again, even Albon has been able to get that into the top 10. So regardless, how much do you really want to bring that into consideration? But you look at the talent that Oscar Piastri and Liam Lawson have been able to bring in this season, and it's hard for me to not be convinced that this is one of the most talented rookie seasons in at least the past 20 years, I feel like, just with the talent for a lot of these new guys coming in. So I think it's a lot for Sargeant to compare himself to these new guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, and I think Sargeant has the unfortunate reality of coming in, like you mentioned, Jackson, alongside Oscar Piastri, who's running amazingly well, and Liam Lawson as well. I mean, it's still going to be a crime, whether it's, he missed out on the AlphaTauri seat or misses out on a potential Williams seat. If he's not on the 2024 grid, it's going to be a crying shame. But, I think back as well, Lewis Hamilton nearly won the championship in a McLaren in his rookie season.
Yep.
Max Verstappen nearly got a couple podiums in that Toro Rosso, and then 4 races into his sophomore season, he's put straight in the Red Bull. He goes out and wins his first race in that car.
Yep.
Charles Leclerc and George Russell, outperforming their Alfa Romeo Sauber and Williams respectively for a couple of years before they got their promotions to Ferrari and Mercedes. So we have a history in recent years of talented, massively hyped rookies coming in here and just setting the world on fire right away and getting the most out of their cars and out of their equipment. Logan Sargeant hasn't done that, but again, I don't know that the crashes certainly don't help his case, and it's making it a little bit harder to defend him in this regard. But I always feel like there's the argument that we need to give rookies more than one season. We can't just throw them out after 1 year. You've got to give them more time to develop, especially when you have somebody like Logan Sargeant here, who I think Jackson, you brought this point up this weekend as well. Probably should have had another year in Formula 2. I know that the seat was open. I know he hit the super license points requirement, and I do understand the philosophy of if he's able to go in, if the seat's open, you might as well start getting him experience in that car, rather than spending another year in the junior category. But, I mean, again, I just feel like you kind of threw him into the deep end of the pool with less training than you could have here.
And Ben,
it hurt him in the long run.
It's a matter of how so many drivers from outside of F1 approach this mentality of, if I'm getting a contract offered to me, am I ever even going to get this opportunity again? Right? Because it's only 20 seats. And I think, again, you made a fantastic point last night, and I really hope you were correct in the way that Williams approached this with a grain of salt, that he is maybe coming into this season a little bit undercooked and a little bit inexperienced. And I do genuinely believe he deserves, he does genuinely deserve, I think, at least one more full season, but I think a bare minimum of half.
Yeah, F1 seems to be a lot like NASCAR in a lot of respects, where if you miss your first opportunity to go to the Premier Series and you go back down, it's very, very unlikely you ever come back. So like you said, like maybe staying in F2 would have been the proper move. Although it's hard not, when you have that available, the super license points he had, it's hard not to take it, but it may have stunted his possibility of having some more success at the top series.
And mind you, Brandon, it could have been a, dare I say, lackluster season this year if he stayed in F2. Competition steps up. He's not able to stand his own. And maybe F1 teams are saying, well, maybe we don't want this kid here. So I think it was a right move. I think if you get that opportunity, you have no choice but to say yes.
Right.
But again, it's just been, it really has been disappointing, guys.
Yeah. Well, and again, I don't know, the science behind it and everything. I have heard in the past, if you want to make the NASCAR comparison here, because I know most F1 drivers are retired by this age, but I've heard NASCAR Cup drivers tend to peak around age 38, 39. So you're telling me that we're going to throw a 24-year-old rookie out of the Cup Series because he's underperforming, like a Harrison Burton, for example. Harrison Burton's what, 22, 23 years old, I think? I mean, I don't know that we should necessarily...
Those peak years have to be so different
as a NASCAR
for
bust,
Formula One.
right
I'm sorry, guys.
Sorry,
those,
Jackson?
Those peak ages have to be so different compared to Formula One.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying the overall point here is that, if your peak age is in your 30s, or if your prime is in even if it's in your late 20s, what's the point in giving up on a rookie who's in his early 20s and saying, oh, he's got no talent, he's got no potential, he's never going to develop and become a star in this sport? But you're not, if you do that, and some drivers do have that happen to them, then, are we potentially missing out on future greatness there, right? And I'm not saying that Logan Sargeant's a future Formula One world champion or anything, but I am saying I think he has had moments where he's shown potential. And again, I know there's only 20 seats, but I'd hate it for him. Look, I've been on record for ever since Alex Rossi was driving that manner, right? Like,
yep.
We got to have an American on the grid to market this sport here in this country and take advantage of the positive momentum that we have. But at the same time, I look at it, I take my American flag hat off of me here, and I look at it objectively, and I say,
is this the guy we want representing us?
It's very difficult to make the case for Sargeant over a guy like Liam Lawson here, because Lawson's gotten in that AlphaTauri and he has performed straight away. And some drivers can do that. Sargeant hasn't shown that he's been able to do that, at least relative to his teammate Alex Albon. But does that necessarily mean that Sargeant doesn't deserve a second year in Formula One? That's the struggle for me right here.
Harrison Burton is 22, by the way. Has a birthday coming up October 9th.
Oh, my God.
There you go.
To be 23.
Yeah, but again, I mean, I think Sargeant was born in the 2000s, right? Yuki Tsunoda as well.
He had to be. I think Yuki's the youngest.
Yeah.
He's got to be.
It's one. Yeah. I think they're relatively close, right? But again, I just feel like to completely put the bust label on them, at this young of an age, I understand that it's a what have you done for me lately sport, and the next rookie's coming up. We're gonna, like Felipe Dragovich, for example. We made this point last night as well. He is in an Aston Martin reserve role, having won the championship. Sargeant finished fourth, and he gets the F1 seat, which is kind of the reverse if you want to talk about it from an American perspective. Believe me, I was certainly annoyed when it came time for that Manor seat to be decided in 2016, and Rio Haryanto had the entire Indonesian oil base, backing his entire career. Manor desperately needed the money. I understand why the seat went to him, but he finishes fourth in what was GP2 at the time. Rossi finishes second, and you're telling me he's going to get the seat over Rossi there? That again, I understand it's not just where you end up on the standing sheet, but it's certainly not a perfect ladder. That's for damn sure there.
How much do you think is Sargeant maybe cracking under pressure because he knows how much this role means to him and what's potentially on his back, and maybe potentially the fact that, I don't know, a lot of people online are always kind of approach the back markers as like the GOATs, ironically, right? And you would know this more than anyone else, Mr. Lascar. So I think it's just
What's the bleep is a kilometer, right? You've seen those memes.
Yeah, exactly. So do you look at hype edits of you bending it, and does that hurt your ego? Do you even know those exist? Do you just close the laptop and get the helmet on? How much do you think that affects a guy like Logan?
I think that's what you have to do. I think, and I know it becomes increasingly difficult in this day and age. But I mean, poor Nicholas Latifi after Abu Dhabi. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I'm sure the Red Bull fans were, he probably got offers for free Red Bull for life after that one. But I mean, the Mercedes fans, it had to have been awful. I hope he took some time away. I hope he was not immersing himself in social media around that time. It's just, it is, we saw it last week.
Fans are brutal, man.
Yeah. We saw it with, when Sherry Pollux passed away and Martin Truex Jr.'s name started trending, and people who have never even so much as met either of them in their lives saying, Martin, you're such a terrible person. How could you and Sherry have broken up, at the start of this year when she was dying and she needed you? Like, as if they had any idea what their relationship was going on, the ins and outs of that situation. It's just such an awful place. And again, I made the enormous, colossal mistake of clicking on his name to see what they were saying about him this past weekend. But, that every figure in this sport, whether you're a 7-time champion or a perennial backmarker, you're going to get hated. There are going to be people out there that do not like you, that are praying for your downfall. And I think in order to succeed in this day and age, in the age of social media, you have to be able to tune that out. And again, I can understand it being hard for a guy like Logan Sargeant, but if he's unable to do that, then I think, unfortunately, and especially if a guy like Liam Lawson is able to tune all that out, and that performance is reflected on the track, I think that only further makes it harder to make the case for Sargeant.
Yeah, any level of the public eye, you're going to have naysayers.
Yeah, there's no doubt there. Well, in a perfect world, I would like to see, I heard this week that 3 of the 4 teams that have submitted applications to the FIA got rejected. Andretti's the only one left. So I made the joke. I guess it's good to know the FIA is only 75% corrupt, which is
yikes.
Again, I know that, Formula One's the pinnacle, but I wish we could, I didn't see the harm necessarily when, my goodness, who would it have been? I guess at the time it was HRT and
Virgin. Yep.
Caterham. Yeah. And Virgin, I know, rebranded as Marussia and then Manor. I didn't see the harm necessarily in having those teams out there. They were certainly not going to win races or even score points on the vast majority of weekends, but they were out there. They increased the field count. They gave more drivers and more mechanics opportunities to live their dream in this sport. Why are we so opposed now here in 2023 to, if Andretti can bring on Cadillac and they are having to jump through all these hoops, how is anybody else going to get on the grid? That's what bothers me. And I think that would solve a lot of our problems. If we had more than 20 seats, maybe, Liam Lawson gets his seat, Felipe Drugovich gets his seat, Logan Sargeant can have another year, and the entire conversation we've been having in the last 20 minutes is completely irrelevant.
You're right. Yeah.
That being said, I think the last thing they want in F1 is a repeat of of 2012 with all of those new, or 2011, excuse me, with all of those teams being added on, because again, a lot of those teams are all three of those teams are gone now, and you want long-lasting teams. You want guys that are going to be a long-term staple for bringing in cash and bringing in audiences to this sport. And the last thing you really want are short-term guys who are, for lack of a better term, chasing clout and being able to race in the most popular form of racing at the time, who are just going to be instantly out of it. On the other hand, I do think it is 100% a little bit of these teams saying the prize pool is split among all of us evenly, and we don't want another person in the treehouse getting a piece of that pie. I think it is for sure, to an extent, some greed among those teams, but I see nothing bad. I do have to agree with you, Ben. I see nothing bad with seeing that capacity of, I believe it's 24 cars being filled out. Also, I think if Andretti does get greenlit for this, Sargeant maybe is a reserve driver, but again, I'm so sold that the first thing he's going to do is go over to IndyCar and look for the two most qualified guys to jump in those cars.
Yeah. Well, but again, there's a super license deal that you got to work around. So I don't know if at this point, and I know Joseph Newgarden was, hitting it up on the grid walk with Gene Haas, 6 years ago. But at this point in his career, does he want to leave IndyCar, or does he want to continue to chase wins and championships and another Indianapolis 500? Is that where he's, comfortable now? Would he want that, even though he's won a championship and would be super license eligible?
He's basically done everything there is to do.
You
there.
talk
Why
about
not?
he's done.
Well, that's true.
He's
That is true,
he's done everything. He is debatably, before Colton, I feel like he was considered as the guy who would be the American in F1. So I would totally see him there.
Joey New Kid on the block.
Yeah.
As he was.
Yeah. Well, and Palou too. I know Palou's linked to McLaren, but
We're not even going to touch that.
yeah.
Forget
We're coming
that.
up on an hour here. We could spend an hour on that alone.
Oh, yeah.
As well. All right. Well, Jackson, since you're the guest here tonight, we will let you go first here as we close the show out. What's your one shining moment? You can repeat what you said earlier this week, or you can take something else with this extra opportunity here. But we do the one shining moment on the Encore show as well. We'll give you that chance. What's your one shining moment this weekend?
Beautiful. I mean, I will be a broken record here, but you see drivers who understandably struggle in their first time around a track, and Oscar Piastri is someone who does not believe in that at all. And you could say he was given a rocket ship by McLaren, and that's true to an extent, but you look at a track as demanding as Suzuka and as driver focused, and I think it is such an achievement for someone to get a podium in their first ever time at that track, guys.
Okay, so I stole my one shiny moment, I have to tell you, from Dave Moody just this afternoon, because I completely agree with him. It's all about Carson Hocevar. It's not Xfinity Series, it's Cup Series, but I'm not on the Cup Series shows, so I feel like I can do that sometimes. Average finish of 16th in his 4 races with Legacy Motor Club.
Wow.
You look at the other 4 Gregson replacements combined, 26.5 in all their average finishes combined. Move Carson Hocevar to the Cup Series pronto. And that's not mine. I can't take credit for it. Again, it's from Dave Moody. You're welcome.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Carson is certainly outperforming, certainly Gregson for sure, but even where Eric Jones was. And I think Eric Jones is, taking a massive step forward as well. I mean, he looked like he could be a race-winning contender this weekend. I know, unfortunately, got taken out in a crash there at the end of the race, but, that Legacy is certainly turning around at the right time. And now, once they finally right the ship here, they're going to go through a manufacturer change, and maybe that'll hold them back a little bit of the start of 24. But I think having that Toyota support is, certainly going to be a boost to them in the long run, and we'll see what comes of that for next year. But Carson Hocevar, again, what he's doing in that Legacy car, I think he's proving that, maybe he doesn't need the Xfinity Series. He might be ready for a Cup ride, maybe one more year in trucks, we'll see. But, I think he certainly is going to be a star in this sport if his Cup rides or if his Cup opportunities with Legacy have been any indication here. I'll stick in the Xfinity Series. I know we talked about it during that segment of the show here. But I want to give a call to Parker Kligerman here, and I know that team has a little bit of backing and relationship with RCR. I know they got a win last year with Tyler Reddick driving that entry, but Parker has really been one of the pleasant surprises for me this season. I expected him to help elevate that team and take a step forward. I don't know that I expected him to run as well as he has week in and week out and be a threat to win pretty much everywhere that car has gone this year. I've expected him to be a threat on the super speedways and road courses, but to get a second place run at 1.5 miles like Texas Motor Speedway and come up one spot short of emulating what Reddick did last year in that car, very, very strong effort. And we'll see if his playoff run, I hesitate to even call it a Cinderella story because I think that team has been running very well all year, but we know we even still don't have the budget of the John Hunter Nemecheks of the world with their Joe Gibbs entries over junior motorsports cars. So we'll see what he can do going into Roval here in the final race of this round. In the meantime, that's going to do it for tonight's episode of GRID Live Encore. And be sure to follow us at the GRID Network on all social media platforms, X, that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, Threads, and most importantly, right here on YouTube. Join us on our journey to 1,000 subscribers and beyond. If you really like what you saw tonight, you can take 5 minutes after the show and consider joining our Patreon. Join Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew in investing in GRID Network to help keep us on the air throughout 2023 and beyond. And as you can see, our goal of $500 per month long term will allow us to begin attending races on site on a more regular basis, expanding our coverage for you, the viewers. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can visit Buy Me a Coffee. Link to that is also in the description box below. You can buy a coffee for your favorite on-air talent. Any amount will help us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet. Or if you're watching live on YouTube, we now have super chats enabled, or you can hit the super thanks button if you're watching the stream back. And again, any amount is greatly, greatly appreciated in our efforts to continue to grow this outlet here. Now, on Wednesday night, don't miss Kobe Lambeth, Josh Birch, and Matt White on GRID tonight. And, of course, you can always stay tuned for more GRID Live coverage this upcoming weekend. As always, good to see our own Joe Samaniego popping in here at the end of the show, asking, do you think Pelot is on anyone's short list of F1 rides? Glad to see you all are still going. Glad to see you in the chat, Joe. Jackson, I usually ask for final thoughts here as we close out the show. I guess we can take Joe's question. Do you think Pelot
I'll give two final thoughts.
Here, yeah, go ahead.
Two final thoughts. One, I think every F1 team is terrified that Pelot is somehow going to rain check. And two, Andy's Frozen Custard might be the most Xfinity title sponsor name ever.
Definitely feels like an EA Sports creation, doesn't it?
Right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Final thoughts. Yeah. I heard Sweet Home Alabama somewhere in the distance because it's Talladega next week. Trucks are going to be a catastrophe, fantastic show. And in the Cup Series, it's going to be drama. So looking forward to it. For some reason, I'm taking a look at Eric Almirola.
Sure.
It's one of his few wins there before. I feel like there might be a playoff spoiler at a place like Talladega for sure. Then also NASCAR comes home week after that. Charlotte Roval. Yep. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Speaking of Stuart Haas, did you guys see those Talladega night schemes that were unveiled today?
No, schemes. I saw the hints.
I saw the teasers, yeah.
All right, well, I will try to multitask here because I want to show you guys live in the air and get your reactions.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let me just tell you, we got a couple of updates here from the Truck Series entry list. Brett Moffitt is going to be reuniting with Front Row Motorsports. He's going to be in a truck this weekend or this upcoming weekend here. And I think a lot of people might forget Brett Moffitt, actually the 2015 Cup Series Rookie of the Year with Front Row Motorsports, and his career, of course, took a very different trajectory. Yeah, go look the standings up.
I believe you. Yeah,
it was a very I mean, he subbed for Brian Vickers in that 55 car for MWR and got a top 10. I think it was at Atlanta to start the year, and then got a ride majority of the year with Front Row. Ended up, I mean, it was another one of those years where we didn't quite have a full rookie class, but he has that accolade on his resume there. So that's the first piece of truck news. The second piece of Truck Series news, we of course talked about Matt DiBenedetto not being in the Rackley Ward number 25 truck. Chandler Smith is going to be driving that truck. That was just announced today as well. And Brandon, I don't know if you have any reactions to that. I've almost got this Stuart Haas graphic pulled up here, but
yeah, I know Matt
is going to be in the 25. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I know Matt DiBenedetto is really upset with Rackley War and all the guys out there about that because he really was just shooting his shot like, I'm leaving. They're like, well, turns out we don't want you. So But that's a big deal for Chandler Smith. And I know it's not really a step up for him. It's a step down. But still, the fact that he's on people's next up list is good to see for that young man. And that was it. Oh, also the Brett Moffitt scheme, throwing back to his 2015 Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, it's a throwback. Yep.
Yeah, it's making a lot of people feel old that we're throwing back to 2015. I was graduating high school, so I guess I missed that Brett Moffitt was. I wasn't really paying attention to NASCAR at that much graduating high school at the time.
If we're still trying to fill air here, I can ask you guys the question I always ask drivers at the end of interviews.
Sure.
Which is my incredibly stupid one, but it's something I do. I love food and I love pizza, and one of my favorite things to do is dip it in ranch, and I want to know how you guys feel about that.
This is America, man. You want to put pineapple on your pizza, you want to put Fruit Loops Pop-Tarts on your pizza, for all I care. I mean, you can do whatever you want. It may not be for me, but people can do whatever they want with their pizza in terms of
I respect that.
I enjoy that.
Or whatever. Yeah.
That's a good idea. And pineapple on pizza is good if it's done right. That gets the snarls, I know.
Yeah.
That's whatever.
Just for the record, I looked it up to make sure I got it right here. Brett Moffitt won the 2015 Cup Rookie of the Year over Matt DiBenedetto, Jeb Burton, Alex Kennedy, and Tanner Berryhill. That was your rookie class in 2015. So like I said, with all due respect to those guys, I think Matt DiBenedetto in particular, the ride that he was in, not as much competition as, say, when Kyle Larson and Austin Dillon were fighting for it, or when you had Cole Custer, Tyler Reddick, and Christopher Bell all in the same class a couple of years ago. But it is something that Brett Moffitt can say is on his resume. So there you go. And I finally have the graphic up. These are the Talladega Nights schemes that Stuart.
No.
Yes. And they got the actual sponsors. No way.
Yes, they did. Shake and bake.
That
shake
is
it.
so
Bake it.
sick. Oh my gosh.
That's incredible.
I mean,
Well
I
done.
remember, what was it, 2013, 2014, Kyle Busch ran the Cougar, the Me car. So
I think that was Kurt Busch, but yeah.
was it Kurt Busch?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It was literally his comeback the same way as the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
So no,
perfect sense.
that's awesome. That's so cool, man.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that this weekend, as well as the Truck Series being back in action. For Brandon Crossland, for Jackson Lambros from Outlap Media, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.